Police officers of Reddit. Who's the smartest criminal you've ever encountered? A friend of my brother moved to Israel, where for a period of time it was and is acceptable to drive with an American driver's license. He was pulled over for speeding, and when asked for his license, gave the officer his Costco card. Costco is a membership-based retail warehouse in the United States and a few other countries. The exchange apparently went something like this. Costco. What is Costco? It's a state I'm from. That sounds made up. There's a lot of states you probably haven't heard of. Have you heard of Arkansas? How about Idaho? I guess not. Well, I'm from the small state of Costco. The officer didn't really have a response and wound up writing the ticket to someone with a Costco's driver's license. Friend framed the ticket and still has it hanging on his wall. There was a guy with over 50 speeding charges with the name Pravo Yazdi. He was in a different car with a different disguise every single time. Eventually, the government set up a special task force to take down this guy. They realized that Pravo Yazdi means driver's license in Polish. Basically, it was 50 different people. The police just wrote down their name as Pravo Yazdi every time someone with a Polish driver's license was caught speeding. A French thief who spent 10 years in prison became a comedian when he got out. One of his stories: finds a building, goes in, chooses a floor, and transforms the exit door into an extra apartment. Puts the apartment number, fake lock, welcome rug, and etc. Puts an iPhone for sale, and the person comes to buy it. He opens the door in a shower robe and says, "Give me 1 second. I'm just going to count the money." And poof, he's gone from the exit stairs. There's a small tourist town where I grew up that's divided in half by a big river. The only way between the two sides is over a long bridge, unless you go all the way around the other mountain pass. These guys called in like 2 to 3 bomb threats to a posh hotel on one side of the bridge. I think they even left some dummy packages. All the police went across the bridge to do crowd control and etc. The guy then called a bomb threat on the bridge and started robbing stuff on the other side. The police couldn't be positive that the bomb threat was real or not, and hesitated long enough to give the thieves a head start. Closing on 20 years ago, a guy now in Australia's Gold Coast got away with a bank robbery in broad daylight. He chased the bank for a while and discovered a pattern of the bank manager arriving about 30 minutes before anyone else each morning, where he could leave the front doors unlocked so that staff could help themselves in without a key or needing to wait for the boss to come and let them in. One morning, the crook dressed himself up for a busy day of office work and waited for the bank manager to arrive. As the manager was unlocking the door, he made his move, entering the building and threatening the manager with a gun. He got all the details he needed to access the vault and so forth, and then he tied the manager up and stuffed him inside his office. When the staff arrived, he told them that the manager had called in sick and that the original office had sent him to do the opening shop thing, and no one batted an eyelid. The bank had a small walk-in vault that normally held about 30 to 50K on any given day, but the old maid had timed his robbery for the morning after business banking day, when all the local small businesses would make their end of the week deposits, and reportedly got a score of close to $250,000. Once the vault was open, he pulled his gun out and invited all the staff to enter the vault and lock them in. By this stage, the bank was due to be open, so when he went to leave, there were a number of customers waiting to get inside to do their banking. He told them all that there had been an issue with the computers, and that the tech team had estimated that it would take about 30 minutes before the issue would be resolved, and that they couldn't open until then. Then he got into his car and drove straight to the airport and flew to Hong Kong, and then disappeared. To my knowledge, the cops never caught him and never managed to find the money. They knew he'd had to leave most of it in Australia somewhere because you can only take 10,000 AUD in cash and any currency out of the country before custom pulls you into their interview rooms, so the assumption was that he had to have an accomplice here who would have funneled the money to him slowly over time. Working in a home improvement store when I was younger, this guy came in, went to the snowblowers, took one, and went to the return desk. He said he wanted to return it but had no receipt. They told him you need a receipt, so he says, "Okay, I'll be back," and wheels it off to his car through the front door. He did this a few times apparently. A couple places even helped him load it back into his car. Probably someone who committed a crime I never saw. With that being said, I had a guy use a sledgehammer to smash his way through a wall at Best Buy and steal a bunch of phones and cameras. He was smart enough to wear gloves and a face mask and not touch anything he didn't have to. Alarms didn't go off until he exited out the back door, which the alarm company gets after a minute or two, and it takes them about 3 to 4 minutes to call into us, giving him a good 5-minute head start, so he was probably a few miles away before we got dispatched to it. He clearly scoped out the area before doing his deed too. Smart dude. A homeowner walks out one morning to drive to work, not only to find his car missing. He reports the car stolen to the police. A few days later, his car is sitting back in front of his house. When he gets inside, he finds a note. It was an apology that said the thief was in dire need of quick transportation, so he borrowed the first car he found with the keys inside. The writer noticed the sticker on the car for the local sport team, and just so there were no hard feelings, he left 4 tickets to an upcoming game in the glove compartment for the homeowner and his family. So the homeowner and his family attended the game, but when they returned home, they found the house had been ransacked of all items of value gone. Most of them are really stupid, so this guy isn't a criminal mastermind, but here goes. He wanted to rob a jeweler's on our city's main street, so he found out that the flap beside the jeweler's was empty, and he had hid there. For 2 weeks, he triggered the alarm on purpose several times a night. Massive headaches for the police and the business. We turned up to see nothing there, nothing on the cameras, and thought it was just a fluke. So the jewelers turned off the alarm system and said that they would wait until the morning to get a new one installed, or that the new one rewired because something wasn't right. As soon as he heard that, and the police leaving, he tore down the wall, he had already been working on this apparently, and robbed the place, taking his sweet time. He escaped without anyone noticing anything for hours, until the jewelers came back in the morning. Then he tried to resell something that he stole, which had a serial number on it, and got caught. Not so smart after all. Good effort though. Well, there was this one guy, we'll call him Jack. Now, Jack stole stuff but also involved a lot of people. One time he was planning to steal a whole bunch of cars, all luxury cars. So what he did was he got his people to call 911, etc. from different places and countries to tell them that the car theft was taking place in multiple places. Oh, he also only used a few people each time, so it was different voices, people, locations, and etc. So the police went each time until he actually did the crime, and then no one came. He was never caught. When the owner of those cars came, the police didn't believe him. 10 out of 10 genius right there. I knew this guy back in the early 80s. Let's call him Jim. Well, he really wanted this high-powered superbike, but he knew he couldn't ever afford it. So what he did was to take a drive to London and scout about for a few days until he found that particular model parked outside of a house. He goes back that night with a sledgehammer, pulls the lock, and steals the bike. He gets it home, puts it in his garage, and completely strips it so that the only thing left is the frame and the bottom half of the engine, which he drags into the weeds at the bottom of his garden. Then he pours fuel all over it and burns it a bit. A few weeks pass and the weeds have started to grow over it. And at that point he calls the cops and reports that someone had dumped the bike frame in his garden. The cops show up and he explains that he just got back from being away and found it. The cops take the frame and note down his name and address. A few days later, the cops call him and say that the bike had been stolen from London a month ago or so, from the serial number on the bottom half of the engine and frame, and that the insurance company had classed the bike as a write-off and had told the cops to dispose of it. Because the frame was found in his garden and the insurance company didn't want it, the cops were duty-bound to ask him if he wanted to keep it or if they should throw it. So he tells them that he'd always wanted to build a bike. He gets the frame back from them, repaints it, and then puts it all back together and re-registers it as a Q, stolen and recovered. Anyways, that was it for today's video. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to never miss out on future videos. Also, if you have any suggestions for our next video, be sure to let us know in the comments down below. Anyways, until then, I'll see you next time.